Raise your hands if you had plans for March or April or May. I know I did. One of the things that I had planned, I thought was going to be really great, was I always look forward to Holy Thursday. And so I wrote a letter, it was kind of a long letter, to my brother priests. And I wanted to encourage them and to give them an example of preaching about our vocation story in light of the Eucharist, the love affair that we have with the Eucharist, and that Jesus has always been present to us in the Eucharist. Well, I don't think we're going to have public Holy Thursdays. Now, I'm not the bishop, and that's not some kind of official decree. That's just me prognosticating. And priests can still do this, and I hope they do. But I wanted to do this kind of in a video form because, we have our plans, but God has his. And so maybe this was part of God's plan. Because as I reflected on this and as I prepared for Holy Thursday, which is the day in which Jesus instituted those two sacraments, the priesthood and the Eucharist, as I meditated on that, I just realized how constantly and consistently present Jesus in the Eucharist has been to me throughout my life. Now, of course, the irony for this is, for all of you watching this, for most of you, you can't be physically near the Eucharist. But one of the many good things that the Lord is going to bring out of this time is he is giving you a deeper hunger and thirst for Jesus in the Eucharist. It's not just, some cookie that we get that's given to us at church. It's the presence of our living God who poured himself out for us there on Holy Thursday and then on the cross, and who pours himself out for us totally and completely at every Mass. So the Eucharist, always been there. I'm going to show you kind of a funny picture. I apologize, there's going to be some glare with this because this was a gift that one of my friends, I did his wedding, and he gave me this gift, and I loved it. I couldn't get the pictures out of the glass though. So that's me at my first communion. Can you guess which one is me? Yep, that one. What am I doing? I have no idea. I'm definitely not paying attention. I'm looking off, distracted somewhere. And then he gave me this other one. I'm even more distracted. That's me. So that's me, that's Jake, that's Michael, that is, was that Joey? I think that was Joey. Anyway, that's Lance, and that's Shane. We were so proud. We all went to a public school. It wasn't Catholic school. We were so proud about the fact that there were only guys in our CCD class ever. So no girls allowed. That was a lot of fun. First communion, I really can't say that I remember a whole lot about my first communion. Kind of sad. But what's amazing is that Jesus was still present to me with, as goofy as a kid as I was, wearing those weird round 90s glasses and the clip-on tie. But then, 2 years later, when I was 9 years old, we really began to connect with the parish priest in our parish, and especially my little brother who has special needs. He connected well with him, and I became an altar server. And it was then that, in a very simple 9-year-old kind of way, I just felt close to Jesus. I loved being there at the Mass. I loved serving. And the priest said, "Hey, you should be a priest." And I thought, okay, I should be a priest. I went and told my friend that, I wasn't going to be an inventor. We were going to be inventors together. Don't know what we were going to invent. But anyway, I said, "I'm sorry, I can't be." And he was a little upset at the time. But, when I was an altar server, there were just some really beautiful moments. There were also some pretty funny moments. I remember ringing the bell before the priest got finished saying the words of consecration. I remember one time I was carrying the glass lavabo bowl that I think they still have at St. Mary's in Lexington, and I dropped it because it was the first time I was serving by myself, and I dropped it there on that bright blue carpet that's still there, and it didn't break. If it would have broken, I think probably the priest would have told me that I was going to go to the Louvain and become an archbishop. But guess what? It didn't break. So I'm just the vocation director. I was so proud, by the way, when I served, we would do adoration, and I love adoration. And I would be so proud of the fact that I could swing the incense and the smoke would get in my face and I wouldn't cough. One of the other kids, he would always cough. I was too tough for that. So there Jesus was present to me, 9 years old. Life got a little more complicated as I got older. But he never abandoned me. So especially when I went to Emmaus Days. So for those who don't know, Emmaus Days is our diocesan program to allow young men to hear the voice of God. It's not a program to make young men into priests, but it's a program to allow young men to hear the voice of God. On Emmaus days, I went, from eighth grade year all the way through for a year. I'm still going. Heck, I'm in charge of it. But, we get to, we would throw water balloons at the seminarians. We'd play basketball in the pool and all these fun things. But the night that always stuck out at me, and I wasn't a particularly super pious young man, but the night that always stuck out at me was the night of adoration and the night of confession. It was so profound, and it was so qualitatively beyond any of the other fun things that we're doing. And it just left this indelible mark in my memory. And I just said, this is real Jesus. And I felt so free during those times. And it was through that freedom, that closeness to Jesus in the Eucharist, that I really felt that further call to the priesthood. As I went forward, then I went with the youth group from St. Mary's in Pontiac. We went to Steubenville when Steubenville was still in St. Louis. And, I just remember the night of adoration. There was praise and worship, beautiful music, thousands of teenagers praising and adoring our Lord. And I looked at Jesus, and I was thinking about all my sins and all my unworthiness. And I just said to Jesus in my heart, I said, Lord, I am not worthy. And I heard him say to me, I've never heard him speak this clearly ever since then. I heard him say, but you are called. Now, I'm not going to say that I was crying during that time. I think I had a lot of things in my eye, but it's probably one of the only times I remember crying in public. And so just that profound effect on me that it had then. I continued even in high school. Didn't always make the best decisions, but I always showed up for Mass. And of course, Jesus always showed up for me. And so I was, looking back, I'm just so amazed once again at his consistency, at his constancy. When I did finally make that decision to go into seminary right after I graduated from high school, I went to IHM. Many of my brother priests and the seminarians know what it's like there. Just that chapel, beautiful, intimate chapel. So many moments. There were moments of great consolation, moments of trying to stay awake during adoration at 4 p.m. I remember our vice rector at the time. I remember him starting to drift off, and I thought, oh, hey, it's not just me. But also moments of great struggle, doubt about my own worthiness to be a priest, moments in which I really wrestled with the Lord. And so now when I go back as vocation director, I go into that chapel and immediately I'm just struck by the graces and by the consolations that I remember that love affair with Jesus in the Eucharist. When I would go home to the Adoration Chapel at St. Mary's in Pontiac, and that was such a delight. It's the oldest Adoration Chapel in the diocese. Sometimes people would try to talk to me, so just people at St. Mary's. If I ever popped into that Adoration Chapel and I didn't speak to you, it wasn't because I was shy. It wasn't because I didn't like you. It was because I was having a conversation with Jesus. So if you ever want to invite me over to your house for dinner, I'd be happy to talk to you then. But it was just a beautiful moment. That's when I knew I was home. I would come home. I would go off the beaten path to go over to that Adoration Chapel. And that's when I knew I was home in the diocese. And then as I continued on, for me, one of the most beautiful moments, the reason why I love Holy Thursday, I remember one time when I was a seminarian at the washing of the feet. I was chosen to have my feet washed by the bishop, which, what a job, poor bishop. I think I took a shower that week. And I was just so struck in that moment by what Jesus is doing in the Eucharist. In John's Gospel, he doesn't have an account of Jesus' institution of the Eucharist. All three of the other Gospels do, and then St. Paul does, but John doesn't. What John has is Jesus cleansing the feet of the disciples, including Peter, Jesus kneeling down, taking off the robe around him and drying their feet. And so I was struck by the profound sacrificial love that Jesus has in the Eucharist, and him choosing me to possibly be his priest. And there's this beautiful song. I won't even try to sing it. Maybe they'll record it and people can watch it online, that the choir in the cathedral would sing as we would, after Mass, we would adore Jesus in that garden altar, that altar of repose. My friend Father Bullock and I, before they started the Peoria thing where they go around to the altars of repose, we'd go to Bloomington. We'd go to the different ones in Bloomington, really beautiful altars of repose. And then finally, of course, that memory of laying down on the floor of that cathedral and being ordained as a priest of Jesus Christ. Such a profound gift, such a profound grace. And I'm completely unworthy of it. But what I found in my priesthood is daily adoration. I'm blessed that I get to visit Jesus in the tabernacle, even when you all don't get to. And I'm very aware of that. And so as I do that, one thing that I really have on my heart is praying for all of you, that you can feel near to him, to maintain that gift of Eucharistic faith. And so it's in those times that I think of all of you, and that I remember that I've been conformed to Jesus in the Eucharist. On the day of my ordination, I was told to imitate what I celebrate. I say, "This is my body." And it's Jesus speaking using my words, but I'm meant to conform myself to that. So my prayer for all of you who aren't priests who are watching this is that you will feel close to Jesus in the Eucharist, and that your hunger and thirst for him will only increase. My prayer for my brother priests is that you can look back and reflect on your own love affair with Jesus in the Eucharist and see how good and constant and sacrificing he's been in your life, and then that you can share that with others. I just encourage you, do not keep silent. I used to wonder, like, why would somebody want to listen to my just kind of normal vocation story? But in a very humble way, it's something supernatural, not because of me, but because of Jesus. So know that I'm praying for every single one of you, and I hope you're continuing to pray for me, pray for our seminarians, and I hope to see you guys soon. All right, God bless.